What is up, guys? Rick Kackis here. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today we are going to be discussing the latest kerfuffle within the Destiny 2 community. Now, earlier this week, a brand new exotic quest was launched, and normally this is time for excitement and hype and happiness within the Destiny 2 community. But this time, although there was some definite good that came from this week's reset and release of this new exotic quest, a lot of the community was not very happy. And even if people weren't directly saying they were mad at the quest, tons of Destiny 2 community members and even a lot of content creators started openly questioning the current model of these seasons, the drip-fed content. Like, it's no coincidence that this quest comes out, a lot of people feel it's disappointing, and suddenly everyone's bringing up, hey, is this the really proper way to do seasons? Should we be looking towards a different DLC model going forward? And again, that's no coincidence. So, what the heck happened? Why are people upset? And what could have Bungie done differently to avoid this scenario? And so, let's get started. But first, I've got to talk about Raid Shadow. I'm playing. Now, let's start with the good news about what came out this week, and that is the actual weapon itself. The light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, the Devil's Ruin exotic sidearm, is a phenomenal addition to Destiny 2. This thing being an exotic sidearm, and sidearms have really not seen too much love. I think the only other exotic sidearm in Destiny 2 right now is the Rat King, so this makes 3 in total throughout Destiny's history, because the Trespasser from Destiny 1 is the only other one off the top of my head. So this was definitely an underappreciated gun type, and this is an extremely unique and powerful weapon. For a primary, it's capable of taking down raid bosses. Like, I put it through Last Wish and Garden of Salvation, and it performed very well for, again, just being a primary weapon. Frankly, it's capable of doing special weapon damage in a PvE environment, and in PvP, it's no slouch. I've seen a ton of clips of people using the Devil's Ruin and charge-shotting down a super charging at them. So this is definitely the positive here, as the weapon itself is very well designed, it feels extremely unique, and it feels pretty darn powerful for an exotic. The quest is really the only issue here, because the contents of the quest were very strange. There's a little bit of weirdness going on, and we'll talk about it, but what you actually did was you played one sundial run. Now, interestingly, the release of the Devil's Ruin and the exotic quest happened on the exact same day that the legendary sundial launched. So it's not match made, and it's a little bit more difficult. However, the Legend Sundial had absolutely nothing to do with the Devil's Ruin. You could go and start this quest and do the Sundial just on the normal difficulty that's been in the game for months, which is kind of strange as to why they launch these things at the same time if they're not related in the slightest. But that's only the first issue. So once you did a Sundial run, at the end, you would just get the first part of the quest. Then you had to go to the tower and talk to Sate 14. Once you did that, you went over to the EDZ, where there was a special mission waiting for you, and it's just finding 10 different items within the Twilight Gap PvP map. That is it. Once you do that, you get the weapon. Now, there is a good degree of fan service at the very end of this quest. You'll hear Saint 14 and Shaxx talking, and Shaxx even starts singing. It's pretty ridiculous, it's silly, and the community loved that part for the most part. People were happy with the ending, saying, this is hilarious, like, Bungie, hope you do more stuff like this. But the actual process of getting this exotic was just super easy. Like, this is probably the easiest exotic quest in Destiny 2 history. You just do one activity, you talk to an NPC, and then you're put in a PvP map as a, hide and seek mission where there's not even any other enemies around. And of course, if we look at the degree of content that offered players and compare it with the polar opposite in terms of exotic quests that are content rich, we have stuff like the Whisper mission, stuff like the Outbreak Perfected mission, where they have their own unique area that we've never seen before, and getting the weapon is a huge challenge. And not only that, but there's an entire process to go back and uncover secrets and things to let you get the usually exotic catalyst for the weapon, and there's often some ships and other content associated with these quests. Like, those offer such a large degree of content for the player that this definitely looks pretty pathetic. But of course, you can't compare everything with the absolute best of the best. Those are the benchmarks for like the best exotic quests we've ever gotten in Destiny history. So you can't be comparing everything to that. But even compared to most other exotic quests, you know, getting the Lumina, getting the Thorn, getting the Last Word, a lot of those are beefier in terms of content, and at least will take longer. That's probably one of the most surprising things about this quest, is that Bungie could have easily extended it a little bit by saying, okay, go and get 100 sidearm kills in PvE, go and complete a Crucible game where you get, 5 sidearm kills in one game, something like that. Just, it would make players play one game, maybe more if you are not that great at PvP, but usually about one game of the Crucible, maybe 2, and then you would complete that part, go and do something else. It seems like they just cut out all the usual, what some people would refer to as filler, and that's another very interesting point. People are upset that this took so little time to get, that we have this thing on the calendar that everyone's hyped for and waiting for, and you've got the weapon, you've done that thing on the calendar in, under an hour, honestly, like 30 minutes you could do it. But at the same time, a lot of Destiny 2 players complain about the stuff I just mentioned. They say, why do we have to go into PvP? I'm a PvE player. I don't want to go into the Crucible, for the Thorn quest especially, and get all these void kills. That's a huge pain in the butt for me. I hate that. I don't want to do that. But it definitely takes a pretty long period of time. A lot of players look at some of the PvE requirements even, where you have to get an arbitrary number of kills with a weapon. Why do I need, 400 scout rifle kills or whatever amount of kills? Why does it have to be this many? Why can't it be less? Like, why does it matter? So Bungie kind of took out all of that filler content where you're not doing anything new really, you're just filling up a requirement, and then they just let you get the weapon super fast. But it turns out that, while players don't love some of that, especially I would point to the PvP portions of it, they want a little bit. They want it to take a little bit longer than just, walking around a PvP map and doing one activity, right? And I think Bungie needs to be a little bit more creative with these things that aren't necessarily requiring them to make new content for, but will actually require you to maybe change up your playstyle. I think a really good idea for this would have been complete a Nightfall, and remember, you can do a 750 light match-made Nightfall, but complete a Nightfall with 2 sidearms equipped for the entire Nightfall. Like, is that the worst thing in the world? No. Would it be harder than usual? Yes. Would it take a little bit of time? Yes. Would it make you play differently? Yes. I don't see anything wrong with that. It's not as annoying as the PvP part of the Thorn, but it would certainly give players something to do, and it would definitely increase their in-game time before getting a weapon thrown at them. But the fact that none of that stuff was done, and the quest was so incredibly short, is a little bit suspicious to me. And there's some evidence that something may have happened behind the scenes to make this quest so short and frankly so pathetic in a lot of people's eyes. And that's this start screen. So when you originally logged on for the first time when the Devil's Ruin was available, this pops up and it says a new time lost frame. A new time lost frame has appeared within the sundial. Enter the sundial and defeat champions in order to pull this frame into the present timeline. Those who accomplish this will gain access to a new exotic quest. Why are you talking about defeating champions. Defeat champions in order to get this exotic quest. As far as I know, the champions that you kill have no effect on getting this exotic quest. If it is a factor, it's so incredibly low that I've never heard of anyone not getting access to this quest after one sundial run. So why put that in there? Why not just say something like, a new exotic quest has appeared, enter the sundial to begin your journey? That's all they would need to say. Why did they talk about specifically defeating champions? And I think this exotic quest could have looked much different sometime earlier in development. Perhaps you did have to complete a certain step that was kill 100 champions or kill 50 champions in the sundial. That would definitely take more time to get. That would be more skill intensive for sure, but that would also lead to some big problems. If you can imagine, if that was the case, people would be absolutely all rushing for every single champion that spawned, potentially stealing each other's kills. If it only counted the kill for you if you got the final blow, that could be hugely problematic. And I think if that was the case, you probably had a ton of people leaving as soon as they got that step done. Like, as soon as you got it done, that's my 50th champion, I'm in the middle of a sundial run, doesn't matter, I'm out of here to start the exotic quest. Like, that, let's be honest, that would happen. So potentially Bungie did have a longer, more substantial exotic quest, but they kind of realized these things last minute and said, oh my goodness, we are going to make doing the sundial miserable with this quest. Everyone's going to be leaving constantly once they get their champion kills. We've got to scrap it last minute. They threw together the rest of what they had, or they just made it so it's just one sundial run, and that's why it looks abnormally short and abnormally bad in terms of content, is because they changed things last minute. And the evidence for that is that initial info frame that really is interesting because it has nothing to do with the actual exotic quest other than mentioning the sundial. But regardless of what happened behind the scenes, the fact of the matter is a lot of people are questioning this current seasonal and DLC model we have right now with the drip-fed content. Before, remember, if House of Wolves or Dark Below and a lot of the D1 content and the traditional DLC model was in place, you have a new DLC, it comes out, it's super front-loaded, like you have all this new content right off the bat, and there's not necessarily too much that comes after. So people are exploring all this new content, going about it in different ways, and you feel like there's just a lot to do. With this drip-fed model, you get a little bit, and then a few weeks later, you'll get another little bit, then a few weeks later, you get another little bit, and although it certainly keeps the game relevant for longer, you have weeks like this, where it's on the calendar, oh, a new exotic quest, and it's underwhelming, and you feel like, why did I even log on? And that is not a good feeling. Or you do everything that came out for that reset in one day and you're done and you're back to playing another game or something like that, and you feel like you miss the days of old where everything happened all at once and it took you so long to sort through all this new content. And I've seen a lot of people say that, but the problem is that we are not living in the past. We right now have a very different Bungie than we've ever had before throughout Destiny 1 or Destiny 2. This is an independent Bungie, and the fact of the matter is that they just might not have the resources to pump out this massive amount of DLC that they did before and have these big DLC drops. They might not have the resources to do another Forsaken level DLC. They lost 2 studios with High Moon Studio and Vicarious Visions when they split from Activision. It wasn't just their publisher going away, it was a ton of resources. And if you look at what happened in terms of DLC content added, like stuff like the Warmind expansion, that was spearheaded by Vicarious Visions. Obviously, Bungie had a big part to play, but the brunt of the actual content and the background stuff and actually making the expansion was a totally different studio that's now not in the picture. We just have Bungie now, and it may not be possible to have more substantial things like the days of old. And stuff like the Devil's Ruin is kind of us feeling the consequences of this action. Obviously, getting Activision out of the picture has a bunch of positives, but a lot of people skimmed over the negatives. We're living in the negative right now. This is the negative, is the Devil's Ruin quest. But with all of that being said, Bungie, you can't have an exotic quest this short and this pathetic. And you're gonna have to start rethinking how you do things because you are lighter on resources. There's ways that you can make an exotic quest more interesting. Again, the double primaries while you're beating a Nightfall, or double primaries in a Sundial. Make people play a little bit differently. Extend the grind and increase the skill gap for those getting this weapon without necessarily adding a bunch of brand new content. Just make an exotic quest interesting and engaging and longer and a little bit harder without necessarily having to spend a bunch of resources. You're gonna have to start thinking in different ways. Guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, found this informative, found this interesting. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at @RickKackis. That's linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.